So tonight I want to review Oliver Stone's film Talk Radio, and to me this is one of the best and most cerebral films ever made, and also it's definitely one of those films that unfortunately is very underrated and definitely a very important film for our times regarding social media and how people just feel like they should have a call to action based on their beliefs, whether it be violence and whether it just be harassing other people and also just making themselves known when they're creating more problems for themselves. So Talk Radio, and it's actually interesting because the poster of Talk Radio inspired the album cover of American Idiot, the Green Day band. So, Talk Radio is about this radio show host in Dallas, Texas, and he has a very complicated personal life. He has a woman that he's in love with, and then also he has an ex-girlfriend. No, he has an ex-wife that he cheated on, and also he has a talk show host. He also has a talk show that is very controversial. Like some of his regulars are people with mental health issues, people with relationships issues. One is a person who's like a stoner who lies about his girlfriend ODing. Another person is this. He meets a few people who are very anti-Semitic. Use the word nigger a bunch of times. He also communicates with people who send like racist things through to the mail, like a dead rat because he's Jewish, the Jew rat stereotype, and then also Nazi paraphernalia. And then also he also has this regular that's actually admits to being a serial rapist. So he kind of lets those people on his show because I think that he just likes the edgy, no boundaries types of style. But also, he's also facing a lot of different pressures. One thing is that, he has an ex-wife that represents a lot of feelings, and he's trying to make closure with her. He is somebody with lots and lots of intelligence, but he keeps having conversations with people who are very mediocre, and he almost has a mental breakdown because he's like, that's just really annoying that I have to kind of just keep getting the same types of people, which are people that are not intelligent, just people who just want to just be edgy and controversial and be stupid. I think a great example is the Jerry Springer Show. I believe that it tried to start out being a very serious, cerebral show, but then some drama and outrageous stuff happened, and then it became more and more outrageous because that's what people kind of wanted. So he has like a breakdown because of that, and in the end of the movie, things happen to him. But I do think that this is a very powerful piece in a lot of different ways. I think that, first of all, there's a lot of talking points. That anti-Semitism, like obviously there was the Holocaust, so there was a lot of anti-Semitism in the 70s and the 80s when this film was made in the 80s. And there's a lot of people talking about the Jewish conspiracy or saying things that, the U.S. kind of invests a lot of money in Israel, so a lot of the Jews are actually almost getting like reparations for the Holocaust versus, the problems in America. And that's true nowadays, where a lot of people just say, okay, well, now the world's run by the Hollywood elite, the Illuminati, the Freemasons. That's why, black people get certain advantages. That's why Black Lives Matter gets certain advantages. That's why Jews get certain advantages, but regular white people don't. So there's still that parallel, and people just being taught these very toxic beliefs that some people actually do believe in. And then there's almost like a cult mentality of, what, because I believe in this is how I'm going to operate. And then you look at groups like Make America Great Again, and you kind of just like look at what happened with the invasion of the Capitol building. Like, those are obviously people, just like in talk radio, where they have these very dangerous ideologies, and they're kind of like, what, I'm going to do a call to action and cause a lot of problems in the world. And ultimately, you should not do that. You should not put your life in danger or other people's lives in danger because that's not you expressing freedom of speech. That's actually you breaking the law. I also kind of think another thing that I will say about talk radio is that also that, sometimes, we have social media, and sometimes, we put things about ourselves out there. Like, obviously, when people are calling into talk radio, um, what happens is that, they're saying their personal problems. Sometimes they're talking about their sexual fetishes. Sometimes they're lying about being about sometimes there's this person like lying about like his girlfriend ODing. There's people talking about crimes. There's people who are racist, and that's true about like what you see nowadays, where there's a lot of people on like Facebook or social media. They're just doing whatever they want. You see like people getting expelled from colleges for dressing in blackface or saying something racist. You see people who sometimes there's people who lie about wanting to commit suicide. There's some people who will do posts about faking their deaths or saying that they're dead when they're not, just because they want views or attention. And ultimately, you're kind of like living a life of being criticized or setting yourself up for criticism. And it's almost like, why do that? Why, as a human species, do we allow ourselves to hurt ourselves for attention? I think that that's personally human. That's in human psychology, but that's just a that's just a very, very bad one that we have as human beings. And I think that's also kind of like the thing when you look at Barry's show in the movie. He's a radio show host, but why does he continue on with it if it's making him miserable? If he kind of feels like he's not intellectually challenged, and ultimately, I think that he's always going to be reciprocated with people who don't take him seriously, because it's almost like not at a point of trying to intellectually challenge him back. It's almost like just busting his balls. And that happens to a lot of people in this world, where it's almost like, you want to try to, you know that you're kind of ahead of a lot of people. You're trying to be avant-garde. You're trying to like be going forward with your life or your ideologies. But you almost feel like that because there's morons around you, you're just going to get the attention of morons because that's the only attention you feel like you can get, instead of just keep going forward or whatever. Like, I think Barry would be successful if he was on NPR or other channels where they actually have more of an intellectual audience and they have more like intellectual people talking about ideas versus just being like, okay, well, I'm going to be on a radio show host. Well, I got a radio show in Dallas, so I'm hearing all these people, and now I'm going to be a national brand, but I have to be one of those national brands that take everybody because everybody is a bigger audience. So he's putting himself technically in a career path or in a bastion of success where he's going to be communicating with the people that he doesn't like at all. So, just because, so it's almost like just because you want something really, really badly, and it's kind of like, a way to make more money, but it's not challenging intellectually and it's making you frustrated intellectually, doesn't mean you should continue on with it. Because at the end of the day, you're kind of hurting yourself a lot more. And again, I have to talk about the 48-hour film project. That, I'm a very talented person. I'm very like cerebral. But sometimes I've been frustrated with the 48-hour film project. Because it seems to me that sometimes they always seem to kind of push comedy films or mediocre films. Like, I know like there was this film for Boston a couple of years ago where like the film was about this guy a bunch of these three friends who take a bunch of weed. One of them turns into a pet pig and they're playing with the pet pig in the park, and they won like best film for making that movie, and then the pig won the best pig actor. And then there was a film for Washington D.C. where a guy's talking to his dog telepathically and he's trying to get advice from the dog on how to have a girlfriend. How to get a girlfriend. So the dog was like saying, "Have you considered licking, sniffing her crotch? Sniffing her butt, eating her shit, and other things like that." And sometimes I get angry with the 40-hour film project because I'm like, you know what? It's kind of really sad that you're almost encouraging people to make all these like really, really silly comedy films when you can actually try and challenge people by talking about emotionally powerful and painful stories. So it's almost like that thing, or the Teen Titans Go argument. Teen Titans versus Teen Titans Go. People get angry with Teen Titans Go because they're like, you know what? You took something more serious and cerebral, and you made this comedy crap. And sometimes what happens with the people who want to be more serious or more intellectually challenged, you have to learn to to just find your own tribe, really. And that's kind of the weakness of Barry. He does not find his own tribe. He's kind of insulting and pushing people and being more edgy. And the problem is that what he does, what ends up backfiring on him is he realizes that there are some people who just don't take things on the chin. They'll bother him in his personal life. Like he's a victim of of terrorism because people send him threats in the mail because he's Jewish. So sometimes when we just feel like only idiots listen to us, or only idiots give us attention, or only idiots give us our money, sometimes they tell us that that's not a life we want to live, and we have to do something about it. And then I think also too, idiots are always people who are attention whores, people who just are like, you know what, I'm going to use radio and media to talk about my problems when I should be talking to a therapist. And then also sometimes when you are abused by people, or people think you're stupid for sharing too much about yourself, sometimes there are people who keep feeding into that. Like, I'm going to share more and more and do whatever because at least I'm getting the attention, or at least maybe one day I have a fantasy that somebody's going to understand me and then treat me with the respect that I want. So, I feel like talk radio is definitely a film very, very ahead of its time. Like, definitely it's on the cusp of the 1990s when social media and attention on the internet and just media being more about a diversity of people, more so talking about people's problems. Not really almost that the seeds of it was in the 90s. It was like Jerry Springer that kind of brought attention to that. Then the news, then the Simpsons and other programs that kind of said it's America is not just the 1980s. Bill Cosby, everybody's a happy family type of thing, or family issues or personal issues are not as big as they are. But when you got into the 90s, they really kind of talked about that. And then when you got really into the social media age, it was almost like maybe YouTube was 2006, I believe. But it really was a few years into social media, into YouTube, where I think people just found their therapy by talking about very personal issues online, and that's also on Facebook and other things. So I think that ultimately, social media as a place to talk about yourself or express your views, that are very either personal or controversial, it's always going to do damage to you. And I also too that when you are somebody who is popular on the internet and you do something like just listen to people or have a show where people are listening and giving their feedback and you are just giving your answers to it, sometimes it could be an easy environment for you to feel like, well, you know what, my audience is morons. So instead of just making a new channel or new show or being part of something bigger and better, you stick with the mediocrity, and then ultimately it angers and frustrates you, but you're still making that money. But ultimately, you're the fool for not challenging yourself and making yourself happy. So there are a lot of talking points to talk radio. It's definitely an extremely underrated film. It's probably one of the most important American films ever made.